Hello, class. So our group was assigned the Black culture for this cultural presentation. So we're going to dive into that. And within that, there's African, Haitian, Dominican, and Jamaican people that we're going to be focusing on. So this group members were Felicity Watkins, Hector Rivera, and me, Brennan Williams. And this is for IPE 376, Cultural Competence in Healthcare. So let's dive right into this. So this slide is actually an older slide, but it goes through, or an older image, talking about what uh, population was like in 2000, 2006, 2010, 2015, and 2021 for Black Americans. So some interesting facts about that is if you look at the chart in 2000, so a little over 20 years ago, there was 36.2 million black people that lived in the United States. And so clearly there's a lot of growth happening as only 20 years later or 21 years later, as of 2021, the population has grown over 10 million, from 36.2 to 47.2 black people inhabiting the United States. So that's an increase by 30%. And it's actually the third largest group population at 14.2%. And then another interesting thing that's not mentioned in this slide, but roughly 30% of Black population is under the age of 20, and then 12% are 65 or older. So we're seeing a lot of young Black people that are being born in the last 20 years or so. So that's an upward trend. Almost reminds me of like the baby boomers from 60 or 70 years ago. There's just a lot more people being born to this specific group. So moving on. So talking a little bit about the African culture. So the African culture is a culture that has mixed countries with different types of tribes that have distinctive characteristics from just Africa itself. So the African language is spoken in tone language. And African traditions show many art forms. They love their art, so they are into music, dance, art, sculpture, beadwork. So there's a lot of intricate designed things, a lot of music that pertains to the African culture. And then African food is there's numerous African foods, but some of them mentioned here is grand fest dishes like biryanis, tagines, stews, and aromatic curries. And then as far as clothing goes, they were made out of the skins of animals such as fur shawls, leather, and loincloths. So a lot different than what we see in the United States. Is African culture is a lot different. They wore a lot of different things, ate a lot of different foods, and they still obviously do that now. And then as far as jewelry, they make traditional jewelry out of seashells, eggs of an ostrich, feathers, etc. So that's the African culture. Then we'll move on to the Haitian culture. So the Haitian culture combined with African, French, and West Indian cultures. So it kind of has its own thing, but it like takes bits and pieces out of all those. The language that's spoken in Haiti, more often than not, is Creole, um, and that's like the national cultural language of Haiti. So it's the language has symbolized literature, drama, music, dance, and some government functions. Haitians are also really well known for its rich folklore traditions. The culture is a magical tale, part of Haitian voodoo tradition. So they have a lot of like stories and folklore that goes on in Haiti, um, pertaining to even like voodoo. As far as the Dominican culture goes, the next one we're going to be focusing on. So they unite with European, African, and Tanio cultural elements. This culture is really well known for its food. I can attest to that. I have several Dominican friends, and they always have these like huge feasts, which is some of the best food you can imagine. Um, and then they also have a really sense of like a family unit. family is really important to the Dominican people. So there's a great family structure. A lot of times you'll see numerous generations living in one home, and not only for financial benefits or anything like that, but it's really just the togetherness that goes on in the Dominican culture. And then they also, have their usually have strong religious beliefs, and then also have interesting music. So Dominicans are usually very friendly people that love to welcome new people into their culture. They celebrate Sur Lo Day wearing Wab Douay and like to celebrate with a big Surlo parade as well. And of course, my face is blocking this. I don't know if I can move it. Oh, wait, let's just do this. Okay, so that's the parade that Felicity was talking about in this slide. So, so yeah, that's the Haitian and Dominican cultures for you. And let's move on to the next one. Okay, yeah, we'll go to Jamaican culture. So Jamaican, it really interacts between European and African culture. So it's like a mixture of that, even though it is in Africa, but it takes a lot of the European culture into account. So this culture is the birthplace for reggae music. Bob Marley, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of him. So he um, was a Jamaican man, and his music, that kind of can give you an idea of what Jamaican music is often like, that reggae style. They're also known for jerk dishes, which I think she's added a few pictures in here. And then, as far as religions go, the Jamaican religions mostly involve music, dancing, and spirit. Um, spiritual aspects that celebrate their ancestors. So that's a big thing, is celebrating the people that have come before them and their family. So this tradition is actually really closely rooted to numerous other African cultures. A lot of them you'll see place a really high importance on like their ancestors. So that's an interesting thought. Um, let's see. The culture, the food. There's just various food, spices from all across India and the Caribbean. Their more popular dish is ackee and saltfish. So if you ever get a chance to try that, might be good. Let's move on to the next one here. It'll let me do it. Okay. So here's a map of Africa, which is where a lot of these cultures we're talking about. So the African here, um, and then over, let's see. Yeah, you've got Haiti here, a little bit west of the Dominican. And then if you go further east, you've got Puerto Rico and all that, and then Jamaica a little bit uh, west. So they're all in pretty close proximity to each other, so you can see how they would go hand in hand. And a lot of these cultures are pretty similar, is because they're pretty close. And that's just right off the Gulf, or right off the southern tip of Florida. So it's really, honestly, not an insanely far away as far as Jamaica goes, and the Dominican. And then Africa is a little bit further, but so then moving on, here's some traditional definitions of health, illness, and healing. So in Jamaica, the concepts of understanding health, disease, and cure first developed in association with traditional herbal medicine. Good health for the African consists of just like a complete um, overall health approach. So you've got mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional stability of oneself. And not only yourself, like how we were saying, the Dominican people have a really strong sense of family. That's also pretty common in the African traditions. You stick with your tribe, you stick with your family. Um, so not only are those good health for yourself, another big focus is health for your family members and just your general community. So I think that's great. This integrated view of health is based on the African unitary view of reality. For healing and illnesses, voodoo priests are practitioners of black magic. Believers seek these practitioners when they must worship the spirits to be relieved of illness. And then also maintaining a relationship is believed to be a form of protection from harm. So it seems as though if you have a relationship with the voodoo priest, you could be protected from all the things that come with voodoo, which I do not hope to ever be on the receiving end of anything like that. But in Africa, I guess that's a common, or in Jamaica particularly, that's a common theme, is to um, seek out practitioners of black magic. So moving on. Now we're going to go into Haiti a little bit. So health maintenance and protection in Haiti. Haitians believe strongly in the power of God and that he has the ability to heal, and also that whatever happens is the will of God. Their health is considered a personal responsibility, and they'll self-treat a lot and promote health before seeking traditional medical care. So this is similar to a lot of people that I even know, not even Haitians, but just a lot of people feel as though their health is like their responsibility. They're the ones that need to be accountable. They're the ones that need to help themselves. So that's something you may run into as a healthcare provider. Is with Haitians is them. Uh, if they come to you, there might be something seriously wrong because a lot of times they'll try to take it into their own hands. So you have to be mindful of that when working with these people. Um, so yeah, voodoo, another thing practiced by Haitians and sometimes even by the Christians. Uh, so Haitians use herbal preparations, massage baths, or over-the-counter medications to treat their illnesses. And then remedies used in voodoo generally come from plants and herbal remedies. And oftentimes Haitians also don't seek pregnancy care, prenatal care, because it's not an illness, they think. So they'll usually just have natural childbirths, not see a doctor or any healthcare provider, and just kind of view that as their responsibility and not the responsibility of anyone else. And they also, this is really common too in Haitian culture, is they believe that mental illness is supernaturally caused, such as being possessed or being punished by spirits. So I know that even in the US, that was a pretty commonly held belief until maybe like the 20th century. A lot of like people thought that, oh, if you have a mental illness or like whatever it might be, you were affected by a demon. And it isn't until recent studies in the last 100 years or so that we've really come to realize that that's not the cause, but the cause is normally, um, there's normally some sort of a medical explanation for it. But a lot of Haitians still believe in that more primitive idea that uh, demon possession, punished by spirits, etc. So moving on, health maintenance and protection in the Dominican. So the Dominican Republic was influenced a lot by Roman Catholic and evangelical Christian religions. So um, there's that. Spiritual health included practices of traditional Catholic and folk beliefs. Um, Physical health maintenance around hygiene, activity, and diet. So it's just a lot of, what we do: healthy diet, good hygiene, physical activity, and so on and so forth. So the Dominicans believe that health fell into two major categories: physical and spiritual, like I just outlined. Um, and then medicinal folk practices were also used and passed down through the families. So there's that. So let's go through this. So this is health maintenance and protection in Jamaica. So revivalist Christianity in Jamaica doesn't believe in a separation between this world and the next, meaning that spirits can affect health in this world. So that's very similar to what we were talking about a couple slides back. Um, 9 nights ritual is practiced to ensure a dead person's duppy did not come back to haunt the living. So they do rituals and go, basically to ensure that the person is gone on to the next, spot, and that they're not still here haunting our lands. Obia is believed to be a healing practice that's deeply spiritual and keeps them safe from harm. It's interesting, though, it's actually a form of black magic, but it's been outlawed as well by Jamaica, the Jamaican authorities, government, but a lot of people still practice it. Um, and then going back to the nine nines ritual, I thought I'd say a little bit more about it. It's a death ritual. It involves like music, antidotes, lots of food, lots of rum. So it's like a big party. Um, and a duppy, in quotes, is one of the two souls that a person has. So they believe people have two souls, um, one for the earth, one for the next life. Uh, So Jamaicans use a mix of traditional and biomedical healing practices. They strongly believe in physical or in spiritual healing. Um, they believe that illness is caused by spiritual forces or violation of cultural taboos. When holistic treatment fails, oftentimes they turn to modern medicine, but normally it's not until all their other avenues have been explored. So it's like the sort of last resort. Um, so you have to keep that in mind when working with Jamaican patients in the future. Current health issues in Haiti. Cholera is a huge one. So from October, oh crap, sorry. There we go. From October of 2010 to February of 2019, there was 820,000 cases, including almost 10,000 deaths from cholera. So that's a big one. It's an enteric infection that is caused by ingesting the bacteria. So it's like oftentimes in Haiti, they might not have access to like good food, quality food. So they can get cholera from the contaminated food. And, there's inadequate sanitation, insufficient access to safe drinking water. So that's a huge issue in Haiti as well, leads to a lot of diseases. And then unfortunately, that number that you heard, 10,000 deaths, most of those were children because cholera affects children more often than adults. So then there's also a lot of vector-borne illnesses such as malaria, dengue, cheek. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that one, and then Zika illness or virus. So they're passed through a lot of times. Mosquitoes, ticks, etc. So just insects that can pass these vector-borne illnesses. Um, then lastly, oh shoot, man, this mouse is sensitive. Then there's hepatitis A. So that interferes with the function of the liver. It's spread also through food or contaminated water. Can even be spread through fecal matter, so poop. Um, very common in areas with poor sanitation. So those are the main issues in Dominican, or sorry, yeah, no, those are the main issues in Haiti. Sorry. Um, okay, so then this is the current issues in Dominican. Forgive me on that. So there's schistosomiasis. It's spread through parasitic worms in infested water. It causes abdominal pain and diarrhea. And then thankfully, there's an anti-parasitic medication that can treat it. The World Health Organization is advocating for or the WHO. So I'm sure we've heard about that in this class and in others, I'm sure. But they're advocating for access to better medication for this particular illness. So more people are being treated. So this is a big issue in Dominican, but it's becoming less of an issue. So that's a really good thing. Okay. Then another big one is the HIV, the AIDS virus. Um, the country with the second most reported HIV cases, and a lot of times it's uh, transmitted through unsanitary needles. And then the Dominican, it's one of the 8 countries in the Caribbean and Latin America to have a needle and syringe program. So that's interesting. This program provides people who inject with clean needles, so they can prevent the spread of AIDS and other illnesses that are transmitted through that vector. If detected early, so moving on to malaria, malaria is another big issue. If detected early, malaria can be treated. However, if left untreated, it can kill you. So it can be fatal. So they're working on that, and they're trying to get that in order, and make that less of an issue. So that's a big thing. Mosquitoes. Um, in 2015, there was 438,000 deaths worldwide, um, pertaining to malaria, and Dominican played a part in that. So moving on. Then in Jamaica, big three, we got cardiovascular disease, diabetes, chronic lower respiratory disease. So 70% of all the deaths fall into one of those, in Jamaica. So that's really interesting to me, is those are pretty much what's how biggest health issues in Jamaica. So there's just lack of personnel in Jamaica. There's not a lot of healthcare providers there. So there's a lack of personnel. There's outdated systems. So it's their quality of care they're getting, is not up to what we have in America. It's outdated. Not a lot of doctors, and the people that suffer from these chronic conditions, they oftentimes cannot get the adequate help that they need. So that's unfortunate, but that's just the reality. Um, Jamaica has established a health system. It is aiming to increase the capacity of health centers and hospitals that are able to provide comprehensive health, disease prevention, and treatment to more specialized individuals. So it is something that's being worked on, but as of now, not it isn't primitive, but it is outdated. Um, the medical access to medical supplies and personnel needed to really attack these main issues of health going on in Jamaica. Okay, so here's the like mortality disparities in Haiti. It basically shows this graph shows you from 2009 to 2019. AIDS has become less of an issue. Heart disease is bigger. So that, and and you can see if you follow along there all the things that have happened in the past 10 years. Um, so a lot of these like mortality disparities that are going on, um, are due to just like a lot of them are due to poverty, and they don't have a lot of access to healthcare, inadequate public health infrastructure. Yeah. So it looks like the population is expected to, from this graph, it's forecasted to go down actually, and a lot of that is in the next 100 years, 2100. It's projected to go back to what it was in 1990, which just based on the fertility rate and the mortality rate. So mortality disparities in the Dominican, the life expectancy at birth is 74 years. The infant mortality rate is 23.2 per thousand. The leading cause of death in the Dominican Republic are non-communicable diseases, cardiovascular disease again, cancer is a big one. It's a similar theme to all the others. Not a lot of access to quality healthcare, so it's limited in some areas, especially like when you get into rural areas. And then there's just a shortage of healthcare professionals. Same thing as the last couple countries. So I'm just going to move on. That's from that. Mortality disparities in Jamaica. So these graphs are similar. What's going on in Jamaica as far as the leading causes of death? Women who live in areas with a high proportion of Black residents, lower levels of education, and a higher poverty rate were a lot more likely to experience pregnancy and childbirth complications. So in America, not a lot of that goes on. Normally, pregnancies are pretty well monitored and not a very high mortality rate, a lot higher in Jamaica. Non-communicable diseases, they're a major contributor to mortality rates in Jamaica, almost 70% of deaths. So same type of thing. Diseases are a lot more of an issue in Jamaica than they are in the States. Um, so cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, chronic respiratory disease. So now we're moving on into some personal experiences. So this is my personal experience, and then I'll share Felicity's personal experience on the next slide. So um, basically in 2001, my family moved to Ghana, Africa, and I lived there for about a year when I was about a year old. So I have no memories of our time there. I'm thankful I had experience as a baby. So if you look at that picture, you see a white woman holding a baby, or it appears to be a baby, but it's in this big old, like some sort of a sack. So my mom had me in a mosquito net for a lot of the reasons that were outlined in this slideshow. So the reason for that is because of the malaria care, the mosquitoes that carry malaria. So she was wanting me to be protected at all times as an infant. So yeah, this is May 2001, and then there's a lot of the children that were in that area of Ghana at the time. And the reason we went there is my dad is a doctor, and he went there to kind of assist and help with the local hospital. Because, as I was saying, in Africa, a lot of or countries in Africa, there's a huge need for healthcare providers and state of the art equipment, or at least better equipment than they have. So he went and helped with a church, or not a church, a hospital called Mana Mission, and it was in Ghana, uh, the capital of Ghana, Accra, Ghana. So while there, he helped out in any way he could in the hospital. He did C sections, delivered babies, performed surgeries, and then helped to run the clinic. And he also worked with the church that was attached to the hospital. So that's where I think this picture comes from, is the children in that church. And then we have stayed, and then those are all my dad's experiences and my mom's experiences. Uh, my experience is I know a lot of those people that they met there, and we've stayed in contact. We've even met them and seen them on visits and stuff when they visited the United States. And my personal like impression of these people from Africa is just their like kindness. Um, the African people I've met, they just always seem to be smiling and laughing and just joyful. So that's always been an experience of mine personally with the African people, is just that I've noticed how uh, happy they seem to be. And then moving on to Felicity's experiences, um, she has some pretty direct experiences with African culture, and this is what she has told me, and I wrote it down here. But in her family, they follow many African beliefs, customs, and traditions. One thing her family does is they make like a traditional African herbal tea. Um, it's basically to treat coughs, nausea, runny nose, headaches, fever, you name it. It helps with it. So she said that her family would boil water. They add garlic cloves, honey, cayenne pepper to the mix, and then after drinking it, it's supposed to help your body and cleanse the body of that particular illness. So that's interesting that she has those experiences with an African culture. And then I believe this is one of the last slides. So special considerations for healthcare providers when working with Black people is to give quality healthcare to Black patients. Healthcare providers should do these things. So first, they need to recognize and fix any racial biases. Healthcare providers should be aware of their own biases and how they might impact their treatments of their patients that happen to be Black. Providers should work to improve their biases and learn cultural competence. Increase diversity in healthcare. So healthcare providers, they should hire more Black professionals and support them in leadership positions. Then there needs to be a removal of racial gaps in healthcare. The healthcare providers should know about the racial disparities in healthcare and work to fix them. This is making sure Black patients get equal access to healthcare screenings and treatments than anyone else. And then you need to give culturally sensitive care. Healthcare providers should know about and be sensitive to the cultural differences that may exist between them and their Black patients. So they need to understand like cultural practices and beliefs that might affect the patient's healthcare choices, and basically see them through that lens. They need to build trust and communication. This may mean addressing patient concerns, ensuring patient feels heard, and then if also providing language um, services. So they should offer, if anybody speaks a different language other than English, there should be a translation service. And then, yep, that's our references. Thank you guys so much for following along. I appreciate it. Bye.